Welcome to my presentation video on the Lone Ranger and Tonto fistfight in heaven. To start off, this collection of short stories has a major theme of storytelling. The book itself is a person telling us stories about Indian American life on a reservation. The idea of community plays into storytelling. Each interaction between characters on the reservation is a connection that bonds them. They are all going through the same struggles. They are all able to understand each other in a way that the rest of the country, or even most readers of this book, cannot. There is a sense of freedom that stories give to people, just like the characters in the book. They can imagine a better life, thinking back to the past before the Europeans arrived, or even thinking forward to an imaginary blissful future. The line between these two is blurred, exemplified by this significant quote. The characters of this novel are not just characters, they reflect the real situations that Indian Americans are forced into. The conundrum of assimilation versus tradition is prevalent. The Spokane Indian Reservation is figuratively and literally close to the city of Spokane, both so very connected but also isolated from each other. The characters seek comprehension on their own identities. Throughout each story, a character learns something about themselves, one way being through storytelling. Indian education. This is a chapter that goes chronologically through each grade of the narrator's childhood. What is interesting is how many times HUD house is stated in the book's entirety, especially this chapter. The house in which a child grows up has great meaning to the child. The house soon becomes a home, but not for their narrator though. Every time he refers to it, he goes out of his way to say HUD house and not house. It's almost like the fact that the house was provided by neglectful government makes it feel as though he is growing up in someone else's house. This portrays how dominant his perspective is on the US government at such a young age, and how it has affected his life. A good story. This is literally a chapter about telling a story. Junior tells a story to his mother that ends with Uncle Moses telling Arnold that same story. The whole chapter is very cyclical in the way that it ends the same place it started. Junior's mother and Junior both feel more content after the story has been shared, illustrating the power of a story. Junior thinks, by the end of the chapter, about how the future is far away, but that for now, in this moment, he can feel good. It is a way for them to connect to the present by thinking about the past. I can't do my theme on storytelling and not talk about Thomas Builds the Fire. We all know that he has desires to tell stories to any and everyone. Though not many people want to listen, he remains persistent. He also is nice to everyone even when they are not nice to him. I think that he is a character made to be the representation of most Indian Americans. He is isolated, like Indian reservations. Indian reservations want to be heard, but just like Thomas, almost no one will bother listening to them. Here is a perfect example of them not being heard. The Dakota Access Pipeline is an underground oil pipeline that spans some 1,200 miles from North Dakota to Illinois. It was highly protested against for concern of environmental impact on Native American land, especially on sites that are considered sacred to Indian Americans. At Standing Rock Indian Reservation, 15,000 people protested with a sit-in that lasted months. Construction workers even bulldozed a piece of land that tribal historic officers had deemed historic and sacred. However, the government approved the pipeline against the pleas of hundreds of thousands of worried landowners. This is such a shame because I've traveled to multiple Indian reservations. I have seen the beauty of the land. I have listened to the tribal members explain the meaning behind each part of nature there, each formation in the rocks. I've listened to their pleasing music with unique instruments resonate off of curved canyon walls. This book had some aspects of nature, but it made me realize how much more there is to their lives. I had only knowledge from what I could visually observe and what I heard them say at that reservation, whereas the book presented the social aspect of their daily lives. And that is a much-needed lesson. Thank you.